way you spoke, I spoke 50, 60 years ago, I'm 69 by the way, the way we spoke in the 50s and 60s and the way we speak now, and especially Afrikaans, has vastly changed. And what's incredible about it, it is accommodating other languages. Many words are suddenly coming into Afrikaans, are being accepted as Afrikaans. For instance, but some of them are really absurd. For instance, the word app that we call toep. Nobody knows what toep is. Everybody gets irritated the moment that you try and change it. So we are becoming like the Netherlands. We have a certain sentence, there are 2 English words in it, or 2 words from different languages, and we understand it, and it sounds more natural than trying to be Afrikaans. So I think sometimes Afrikaans writers are very conservative about the way they write. They want to write a certain formal language which people don't speak anymore. And that's why some films don't resonate with them anymore, because people don't speak anymore. You should write your indigenous language the way people really speak. But with Afrikaans,
does this mean
yes,
then that languages are, because I was asking just a question to the other filmmakers that, when we have all the different languages, for example, on set, and we're a multicultural society, is it really saying, because now you're saying that a lot of Afrikaans writers, they write in such a way that that they use other borrowed languages. So will we then eventually all merge all our languages and kind of eventually create one South African language that's borrowed all the languages?
Yeah, I don't think
Nadine,
that can.
Nadine would like to say something. Nadine would like to say something. Yeah. Please say something, Nadine.
Nadine?
Thanks. Good to meet you, Leon. Yeah, I think also to come in about Afrikaans, it's so interesting to me that Barakat is seen as somewhat of an exception when it really shouldn't be. You know what I mean? Because if we go back to the history of Afrikaans, it is a Black language, in fact, where Kritoa was, how can I say, the translator for Jan van Riebeeck, and that's how Afrikaans started within the Black culture, not just the indigenous, but also the enslaved people. Words like Blatjang, Pisang, that are part of Afrikaans language are in fact from the enslaved people. So Afrikaans is a Black language that is ever evolving. So the fact that now in 2021, 2022, we are, yes, Barakat is important. It should not have been the first. You know what I mean? And yeah, so really it's exciting. It's an exciting language. And I think a lot of deconstructing work around it needs to happen.
Remember,
I think what it's also highlighting this conversation is, I'd like to invite all the filmmakers, please, if you have something to say, this is the opportunity with Leon. So for me, what this is highlighting, this Afrikaans and as you talk about Barakat, within each language group, one has to realize that, one can think, okay, we have dominant languages within South Africa that are used on television, like, you can say maybe Xhosa or whatever. But the thing is, even within Xhosa, there are a lot of groups that are not represented on screen. Certain groups, because colonialism also structured language. Indigenous across many countries, actually, where they picked one particular group as this is the ultimate way to speak, and everybody else. So you'll have somebody from Matlosbeni, Mount Taylor, speaking differently to somebody in Mount Frere, Kopata, and you will have all these different people groups who speak a kind of, which Barakat seems to have kind of done in a sense that have people actually representing themselves on screen.
Yeah, It sounds as if when I say Barakat has changed everything, it sounds as if I didn't understand what was being said, if I didn't know the words. It's not true. It is the fact that the way that the language used created such wonderful characters in the way they spoke. That it's the first time in years that I've really seen a South African film taking place in the Cape, in which I could truly sit amazed and loved every sound that I heard. Can I just tell you that I spoke to somebody who was in Angola recently. There's a group of Afrikaners in Angola that has lived there for about 150 years. The language that they speak is Dutch. They still speak the old Dutch that you're talking about of Jan van Riebeck's time, that kind of, they still speak that with some Afrikaans words in between. So when I heard some of them talking, I couldn't really understand what they were saying, and they were speaking my language. It was recorded. So I find that, for instance, interesting, that one should perhaps make a film about them and hear what they think. They would need subtitles there, because also the pronunciation, you don't understand, because if I pronunciate in Dutch, it's quite different from us in Afrikaans. When I was in Amsterdam, for instance, and people spoke Dutch to me, which was very close to Afrikaans, I sometimes and often couldn't understand what they were saying. Neither could they understand what I was saying because of the accent. So the accent is also, I heard somebody talking about accents, that the accent is also, should be true, should be how the people really speak.
Thank you, Leon. Sabantu, you had something to say, your hand was up. Sabantu? Sabantu? Oh, Marianne, could you please unmute?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
I can hear you.
Sorry, I had a connection.
There you are.
Oh, he's gone quiet.
Your microphone is off. Your microphone is off. I can see it here. Your microphone is off, and you've frozen.
Your microphone is off now, Sabantu.
Yeah, and you have frozen. Now I see you. Yes.
Sorry.
There you are.
Can you hear me?
I can hear
I'm
you.
having
And I
a
can see you.
yes.
And you smile.
So I just on identity, I think what's important to understand a lot of the time, and I go back to within the subcultures quite close. A lot of us don't realize the Xhosa language in itself was taken from the Guna people. There are many clans within KwaXhosa. Example, Gwashu is actually a Guna clan. But for a long time, just how the enunciation it changed to make a Gwashu, but before it's actually a Guna. There's a lot of clans. So going back to the representation of when we say Afrikaans in films, and it becomes, wow, it goes back to the point where I said where how you identify with the colored community when it comes to Afrikaans or Afrikaans is identifying it from saying it's gangsterism, it's something bad. So now once you see it on TV, it becomes, now we sort of, people don't identify it as a representation, but rather as something bad. But once you see it on TV, then the narrative suddenly changes that it's something good. Which is kind of sad also. I don't know if I'm freezing here, if people can still hear me.
Not freezing.
No,
I can
we
still
can
hear
hear
you.
you.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so the frustration for me,
Oh dear, now you're frozen.
I think he's frozen again.
Okay, you're frozen.
Now you have frozen.
But
Like the Walt Disney film.
we'll bring him back. But Oratile, are you back, Sabantu?
We'll bring him back just now.
I'm back.
Sabantu is back.
Are you back?
He's
Okay.
He's back.
Sorry. I'll just finish off
Right.
quick, and just in case it cuts off. So what I said is, now it's sometimes sad when once the representation is seen in film and on TV, then it only gets accepted as, oh, now I want to identify with Afrikaans. Now I want to identify with it. But again, I understand why film is important, why it's important to have the representation of indigenous language in film, because it's a teaching lesson to say this has been in history way before. And now to tell people that this language had started here, but it had been taken and then said, no, it doesn't belong to the colored community. It belongs to a certain group. And that's why for me, it's sometimes sad that once a film is taken out, then people want to accept its existence, that the colored community do exist, and Afrikaans does exist, and it is a nice thing to speak, or to speak in a certain way.
But I think that highlights film to me, that it highlights you guys as why you are so important, why storytelling and visibility is so important, which is what you do. You make us visible, and you make certain,
that was my point.
No, I was just saying that for me, that's why filmmakers are so important, because it's filmmakers who make people visible on screen. It's not like those people don't exist, but it's until you make a film and you tell a story in a particular way, then we see it. And I suppose that's why it matters when other groups are left out on screen. And you have, some people who are not represented. It is a problem, because it kind of makes it seem like those people are invisible, but in fact they aren't. As you know, we interact with them. But Deirdre wanted to say something, so I have to let you in there.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think I actually wanted to speak about why it's so important, because becoming a producer is not easy. Having to sort of work with people of all sort of parts of life and making this one story come to life it's not easy. And sometimes it takes a couple of years. I think I have to take my hat off for a film like Barakat, because, predominantly it was people of color, it was directed and it was written by a person of color. So it's exciting to know that we are moving into that shift where we're trying to not decolonize, but to indigenize the mindsets of ourselves, to make sure that we are not following the colonized structures. We are looking at how to create them in our own way, to make sure that we are inclusive to everybody, as Nadine and I and Claudia is trying to do. And yeah, to have a fair representation of ourselves.
Thank you.
I was trying to say is,
Look,
it
you
makes
has
people...
something to say quickly. Sorry.
Okay.
Say something quickly, and Daniel would like to speak.
Hi, sorry, Siki. Thank you very much. I think Leon was trying to say something, so I'm happy for him to just complete his thought, and then I can come in.
Okay.
I just wanted to say it was great for me, for instance, somebody living in Gauteng and only writing a Gauteng kind of Afrikaans, to hear the different ways Afrikaans is spoken. We have in Namakwaland. We have in Namakwaland kind of Afrikaans, which is quite different from what I'm doing. What I'm saying is, I'm respectful for that. I'm glad that I became aware of that, because I wasn't really aware of that way of speaking. It was beautiful. The language was like Italian. It was being sung. It expressed itself differently. And all I wanted to say was, it was great that those people, those particular characters, were exposed to not the entire country only, but the entire world, because it's on DVD, it's on Netflix or Showmax or somewhere, so everybody can see it and understand. And the most beautiful thing is listening to the sounds that they make, because language is also sounds, and the way that the people form those sounds and make those sounds. That's what I wanted to say.
Thank you, Leon. And I think for me, really, that's why filmmakers matter, because they show people. All right, let's give Lekanya an opportunity. And I hope, Zandi, you've got something to say in Ora today, because we're about to wind down. And if you have any questions, please send your questions through.
All right, Siki, thank you very much. And it's fascinating for me to be able to listen to today's conversation and largely on the issue of Afrikaans. and its relationship, I think, to Afrikaans. And obviously, I think we're all very happy to see, you know, the Afrikaans's acceptance as a language that is representative of a people. But I think what has happened is that Afrikaans has always been around and it's always been spoken. The only issue that's different now is the issue of resources, is that finally you having the Afrikaans speakers who now have the resources to be able to make films in their language. And I think that's one thing that we should not forget, that this industry that we are all in, me to a lesser extent, I mean, I just dabble in filmmaking a little bit. I consider myself a journalist. The crucial part to it is not only in preserving our own languages, but also preserving our own cultures, is the need for there to be a lot more financial resources to be directed towards it. Because I think if there's an understanding that what we are doing is preserving our cultures, is preserving our languages, and therefore young filmmakers who really have got the drive, the energy, the passion to pursue those things, we need to ensure that as a society, as a country, and I think people like you, Siki, with the platforms that you have, in being able to reach out to people who, you know, who sit in high office, is to ensure that resources are driven towards these kinds of films. And, you know, Afrikaans is really trying to get there. And I think it will, because now there seems to be this you know, it's almost like a new language that everybody is starting to realize that it's there. So now it's, you know what I mean, it's being fast-tracked and it's getting resources. But a film that's made in Sitsonga, for instance, how many films do we have in like Sitsonga? But not just a film for the sake of a film, but a film that is in Sitsonga, but that is also of quite high production value. You know what I mean? And I think those are the things that we need to be talking about. Yes, it's great that we're talking about, you know, languages or films in mother tongue. But for us to continue and for us to be able to grow, we really do need to put the resources behind it. And we need to get as many aspiring filmmakers, and we need to make it easy in this country to be able to access the resources to make these films. Because we're storytellers. I think as a country, we are storytellers. We are creative. We dance, we move, we sing, we do all of those things. And those are all, to me, expressions of storytelling, expressions of who we are, expressions of our culture. What we need to do is that we need to start putting the resources and we need to start putting the money behind it so that we can ensure that we are able to compete, you know, with other countries, and that all the languages are brought up to a level that is befitting of who they are. And it can't just be English and Afrikaans films that are, you know, that are getting that kind of support, but it needs to be spread across the board. I just wanted to add that.
Thank you. I just say something that I fully agree with you, that we do need the resources, we need the money, but what is most important to me is the story. If you don't have a good story to tell, it doesn't matter in which language you make it, people are not going to watch it. So the story must be accessible. The story must be not necessarily commercial, but it must be something we would like to watch, we would like to see. Otherwise, nobody's going to watch a film. And as you might know, if your film doesn't make money, you're not going to get money again to make the film. That is the catch-22 situation in which we all find ourselves. And I'm just also saying,
sorry, Leon, but should we be making films? Yes. Should we be making films to make money, though?
If you want to make a film again, you probably need it, but also now with streaming services, you don't necessarily need to make money there, because it will be shown, it will be kept on as long as people watch it. So I think that is a blessing, the film ways, the fact that we have that. So many people saw Barakat, for instance, which they would never have seen. They never went to see it in cinemas when they had to pay for it. But now that it's on streaming, everybody was talking about the film. We never saw it. Too late, unfortunately. I think do you know that that was our Oscar entry this year?
Yes.
It was our best foreign language, and it didn't get anywhere. They didn't even look at it. When I saw the short was the long list of about 20 films, and it wasn't even. So just shows you how Hollywood feels about us, but that doesn't matter now.
You were going to say something, Lukhanyo, or can I ask this question? It's my.
No, go ahead, Kiki. I don't want to hog the conversation. I can, but I won't.
All right, you might be sorry you missed this moment, but
No, look here. I can talk the whole day, but it's also fair to allow other people.
Since Leon is here and as a film critic, I mean, I don't know. I'm just thinking. Oratile had mentioned something about, I haven't seen, for example, like a film that's entirely like a movie that's a Tswana film. Yes, I see soapies and series and all that stuff, with the languages being mixed in. I mean, I don't think, whereas in Afrikaans, as you've mentioned, even with Barakat, you see entire films, that are in, one particular language, and they make it, and with, I think we're seeing some amazing filmmakers coming out of Cape Town, which is really great, like a new generation of filmmakers. But I think what I want to ask is that film critics, right? So as a film critic, and I'm thinking, if we're critiquing film, is it really like, because I'm thinking if there are other indigenous language groups, there's a whole cultural way of telling stories. If that film is being critiqued, let's say as an Afrikaans speaking person, your way of perceiving a story of whether, it could have been told better this way or that way. I'm just thinking, how can other new film critics emerge where they kind of come from, the indigenous groups, where they can be film critics? But even then, they may go to, they may learn film in a Eurocentric kind of way of critiquing a story. It's like, how are we developing indigenous filmmakers, film critics?
I also think, for instance, as an Afrikaans film critic, Afrikaans has nothing to do with criticism. I don't think of myself as an Afrikaans person when I watch a film. I watch a film and see what I see and appreciate what I see. What I find sad is that I see so few films from the rest of Africa, from Zimbabwe, from Malawi, from wherever. I would like to see many of those films. I don't even know myself where to see them. And I would see those films, but Afrikaans has nothing to do with the way I do film. It's just I write in